What if every religion you know was actually born from another one? Hidden beneath temples, prayers, and sacred names lies a quiet pattern, faiths blending, rewriting each other, and becoming something new. Why do humans keep merging their gods? What truth hides in that habit of spiritual collage that spans empires and millennia? When ancient civilizations touched, they didn't just trade gold or spices, they traded beliefs. The Greeks gazed upon Egyptian temples and saw reflections of their own myths. Isis met Aphrodite, and soon their stories melted into one divine face. To the people, this wasn't theft, it was recognition, a universal truth wearing a different name. Religious merging wasn't a sign of confusion, it was survival. When foreign gods arrived, they didn't always conquer, they negotiated. Roman soldiers brought Mithras from Persia. African slaves carried Orishas to the New World, whispering them through the language of Catholic saints. Beneath one religion's skin lived another's heartbeat. But this blending wasn't always peaceful. Power shaped which gods survived the fusion. When Christianity absorbed pagan festivals, it also erased their origins. The winter solstice became Christmas. The spring goddess turned into Easter's rebirth. It felt holy, but it was a strategy, a way to unify hearts through familiar celebration. So maybe religions merge not because people forget, but because they remember too well. Deep down, we sense that truth doesn't belong to one temple. It travels, changing form, changing names, but chasing the same light. The light that insists there's only one source behind every prayer. In the ancient world, syncretism wasn't a theory, it was daily life. A traveler crossing empires would find familiar gods under different names. Zeus became Jupiter, Hathor became Venus, and no one seemed surprised. It wasn't about who was right, but about ensuring the heavens stayed populated, relevant, and close to human language. When Alexander's armies marched east, they carried more than swords. They carried symbols and myths that met the wisdom of Persia and India. Out of these meetings, new forms of worship were born, half Greek, half foreign, yet fully human. It was as if cultures spoke to each other through their gods, translating emotions beyond politics. But syncretism didn't stop in temples, it moved into philosophy. Thinkers tried to make sense of this divine overlap. If so many gods resembled each other, maybe they were all fragments of one universal source. This idea would echo later in Christianity, Gnosticism, and even modern spirituality. One truth, many voices. Religious blending also gave people resilience. Under oppression, followers disguised their faith in other forms. The enslaved who were forbidden to worship African deities saw Saint Barbara and whispered the name of Shango. Faith adapted like a vine, quietly climbing the walls of every new world it encountered. So what looks like imitation might actually be genius. Humans paint their faith onto whatever canvas they're given. When cultures merge, it isn't faith that dies, it's faith that evolves. It changes masks, but keeps the same eyes, watching us across time, reminding us that belief is always under construction. In medieval times, religion didn't just merge through conquest, it blended through awe. Pilgrims visited shrines that mixed saints with ancient spirits. Cathedrals rose where temples once stood, absorbing their sacred geography. People didn't see contradiction in praying to Mary on land once dedicated to Artemis. Holiness clung to the place, not the label. Trade routes carried spices and silk, but also gods. Along the Silk Road, Buddhist statues bore Greek artistic features, faces serene, yet unmistakably Western. In Japan, Buddhism merged with Shinto, birthing faiths that honored both ancestors and enlightenment. Syncretism was the quiet diplomat of belief, forging peace through wonder instead of war. Even science played its role. As reason rose, myth didn't vanish, it adapted. The divine began to speak in metaphors, aligning with psychology, energy, or the universe itself. Old archetypes became modern archetypes. What once was Hermes became the messenger within, the intuition guiding innovation and thought. But there's irony in how this blending is judged today. We call it confusion when societies mix gods, yet we celebrate fusion in art, food, and music. Perhaps our discomfort with religious merging reveals how much we still crave purity in matters of spirit, even though history shows purity was never real. So every symbol we wear, every ritual we keep is part of a vast inheritance. Faith is not a straight line, it's a mosaic. Each shard once belonged to another hand, another prayer. And only by seeing them together do we glimpse the full picture of what humanity believes it is reaching for. Maybe the reason religions merge is because humans can't stop searching for echoes of themselves. We keep reinventing what's sacred, stitching old myths into new language, trying to name what cannot be named. Every culture bends the divine into its own shape, but the hunger underneath is always the same. In today's world, syncretism hasn't disappeared. It's everywhere. Astrology wears the clothes of psychology. Ancient mantras are mixed into pop songs and mindfulness apps. We live in an age of remixed spirituality, built from pixels instead of temples. The old gods didn't die, they just changed platforms. This constant blending could be seen as chaos or as evolution. When faith adapts, it proves it's alive. Belief that refuses to mix eventually fossilizes, beautiful but silent. Maybe divine truth isn't a destination but a dialogue, whispered across cultures, centuries, and contradictions. And yet the merging continues not from confusion, but from longing. Humans can't stand silence between worlds. We weave meaning into every gap we find, build bridges between deities and doctrines, hoping that on the other side waits clarity, or at least connection. So why do religions merge? Because we do. Every generation fuses its fears, loves, and hopes into new myths. The strange truth is that the merging never ends. Faith doesn't dissolve, it transforms. And every transformation brings us one breath closer to understanding the thing all religions have always chased, the infinite trying to recognize itself.